So, and here you can see our RS3 has just rolled in and it is now on the ramp having the suspension removed. Now you might wonder why we are removing the suspension. Well, this car has been our test bed. So I had the car obviously quite a few years now, and we've done a couple of different suspensions on the car. The last suspension that we were testing was Öhlins, and now we are fitting a KW kit. Now, who would be better to have here and talk through why we're fitting this kit? But Richard Good, the Managing Director of KW UK.
Hi, Mark.
Hello.
How are you? You all right?
Not bad, yourself?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Right, thanks for coming up, and I know it's been a early morning for you.
It was a very early morning, yes, indeed.
So, Richard, obviously we've got a long-standing relationship with KW, have done for many, many, many years. Obviously, we've tested a couple of suspensions on this. We're waiting for this kit to become available, and we're getting this fitted today. So, talk to us a little bit why this kit is so special.
So, you've opted for the DDC kit. So this is our electronic dampers. So this plugs into the ECU in the car, so it syncs with the ECU. All the plugs go into the original sockets, so there's no cutting or splicing. You've got that on all 4 dampers, and then you can use the software or the button in the car. And I think now on the RS3, you've not only got just on and off or soft or hard, I think you can reprogram it inside the car, and you can actually decide how hard or soft or how comfortable you want it. So it has a lot of features from that because it's linking up with the electronics. It's part of our performance range of suspension. Having said that, it's right on the teetering edge of, you know, performance and comfort.
So just explain that, because obviously you say it is designed for comfort, but it's not actually in the comfort range as such.
And the reason for that is it's, you know, you can still use the maximum lowering. So it's still like a variant 1, variant 2, variant 3, you can still use, you know, the very same lowering range. And of course, the more you lower the car, you know, the shorter the damper gets, you know, the more restriction you get. You know, when we talk about comfort, you know, we're talking always about longer springs, longer dampers to give you much more travel. But here we've tried to get the best of both worlds. So you're using a formed spring on the front as opposed to a linear race spring. So this is, you know, again designed for comfort. So it's like the original spring. Marries up to the original top mount that goes on the car. Again, for comfort, keeps noises down. You know, you've got the big rubber one instead of something like a club sport kit where you'd have a metal top mount. So that again designed through comfort. You have got is a slightly shorter damper stroke like the original, and that's you have to do that because you're going to lower it. You're not going to run it at the stock ride height. And then on the rear you go over to use a separate damper and spring, which is like the factory setup. So we just basically mimic that. It's not a full coilover on the rear, but it's still height adjustable, which you can use with the height adjustable perch. Everything is stainless steel. You know, so that's a big advantage of obviously the KW line. You know, you don't see it corrode or rust. You can still adjust it after lots of mileage.
What's the recommended, obviously for these, obviously for the cleaning? Because that's one of the questions we get asked a lot. Obviously, how to maintain and keep this maintained so that it is adjustable and these. Do these seize up or?
Not really. I mean,
it's just the grit, isn't it?
It is. When you talk about maintenance, really, when the car comes in for let's say it's full service, not so much it's intermediate, but once a year when it comes in, you know, you should just, you know, you can just clean them off, wipe them down. In terms of adjusting, you know, this is, you know, people always think this is a plastic ring, but it's a composite ring with a metal insert. And it takes, you know, you're looking at 2 ton. We've tested that to 2 ton. And it would take the weight. And the reason people say, well, why don't you use an aluminium one? Well, an aluminium one will react with our stainless steel and it won't be adjustable after a year because it will just seize on there.
And this is locked in with obviously...
It's just a pin. It's just a grub screw in there and it's just there to stop it moving. It doesn't need to keep it in place. You know, it's like 2 Newton meters to tweak it up. So if you want to, you only really need to start cleaning them if you want to adjust it. So if you want to adjust the height, it's no good, you know, if you've got some dirt all caked up on here, it's no good leaving that there and then trying to wind that down into the dirt.
Clean that off before you adjust.
So we advise cleaning it off. Cleaning it off, you can get into here, blow it off with an air nozzle, clean it up and go up. Clean it and then start to come down. And that's the best thing to do, and you'll adjust it all the time. It's not, you know, a lot of detail is in there. The thread is a trapeze style thread, so the dirt actually doesn't attract in there and get stuck in there. So a lot of work's gone into making sure you can adjust these. Let's say worst case, you know, the customer's gone on his drive, jacked it up and gone, actually, I'm going to adjust it myself, doesn't clean it off, gets it caught, you know, he's going to damage this perch.
Yeah.
You know, so this can be replaced, can be easily cut off, replaced in the worst case, but it doesn't damage the body. So it's softer. Whereas if you had a metal one, you probably damage the thread. So it's a new damper. You know, so there's lots of advantages for having the one-piece composite adjuster, and it's, you know, a lot of work's gone into that over the years to make it what it is today, and make it adjustable.
And just obviously, we're going to be testing this car today. So, what is the testing procedure? What goes into this at KW from factory in testing a car out on the roads, you know, and designing this kit for this car?
You know, first of all, we would get the stock car in. So every kit that we design is always from scratch, and we always have the car in. No matter whether, you know, it's a saloon, it's a DSG, it's a manual, it's a sportback.
Do you have access to them vehicles and everything on the car?
Every single car has to come back in, and I mean, maybe the first, if we've already developed a kit, we might fit this first, but it will be fitted and tested and measurements taken. And if anything needs changing, it will be changed, you know, and that's why you see that, you know, our application list these days, just box kits, is around 28,500 different part numbers. Yeah. Because it's really important that the car rides correctly. You know, if you have the wrong spring because it's got the wrong weight, it might be too stiff or too soft. And we would never get TUV approval on it. So, you know, for TUV approval, even if you have this at our lowest position, which we recommend.
This lowest position, we get a lot of conversation about this from our customers. There is guidelines on the fitting kit.
Absolutely.
As to where you,
there's a range in where you can lower the vehicle. We call that within the TUV range.
Yes.
So let's say, for example, you're already at the lowest point of the TUV range. You know, maybe that's 40 millimeters, let's say, just for arguments. And let's say you're here. You know, of course, you've got another 20 millimeters left, or 30 millimeters.
Everybody wants to go as low as they possibly can.
Absolutely.
So does that affect the warranty?
Absolutely, yes. So if you're running outside of the recommended ride height adjustment, you know, you start to void the warranty. You know, we have a minimum and maximum lowering, which you have to have for TUV approval. Yeah. So what does that actually mean?
What does that do with inside the damper?
Absolutely. You know, if you let's say the minimum and maximum is, you know, for arguments, let's just go from 15 to 50 mil. Yep. That's the range we suggest. That's the working area of the damper.
Okay, because what we do know is a customer is all about lowering it.
Of course.
And of course they want to go as low as that thread will allow them.
Yes.
And that could be 65 mil.
Absolutely.
What damage does that do?
So, you know, once you start coming out of the range and going, you know, all the way down and getting it as low as possible, you're using the damper in an area where, you know, it's not designed to work, and you're working it harder.
Yeah.
You know, so the life expectancy, you know, could be shorter. You know, we don't know what circumstances it's going to be under. I mean, if you lowered it at its lowest point and you drove motorway driving all day,
you wouldn't have
anything. So in lots of different scenarios, if you hit a pothole, for example, you know, the damper's got less travel to go in. So, you know, certain things.
And what internal damage can that do in there?
It can basically, you know, in some instances it can bend the piston rod if you reach the bottom and it's got nowhere to go. Yeah. You know, you can damage the seal. So there are different scenarios you can happen in there. One of the things to really, you know, explain is safety. You know, safety is super important, and a lot of people know what happens when you're running it at its lowest position. You know, let's give some scenarios. You're running at its lowest position, it's just you in the car. It's a lovely day on a flat road. Mm-hmm. You know, it probably, nothing wrong with this, it drives really great down there, boys. And I'm going to tell my mate to put his there as well. Of course, okay, let's give another scenario. So now
you've got in the car.
You've got your wife and you've got your dog and you're loaded, and you know, you've got your children in the back, and you know, it's you're on the way to the airport. Mm-hmm. Let's say it's now you're late. Let's say it's raining.
We're getting a shift on.
You know, and you're moving it, you know, so now you've got a different scenario. So the car's fully loaded, you know, you're already got the adjuster down here. You're probably very close to sitting on the bump stops. So very little suspension travel left. So,
and that's going to unsettle the car.
It will unsettle the car. So you're going to be, you know, if you start hitting bumps in that car, you're going to start to control it, and you know, the worst things could happen. You know, so it's very difficult.
So that's why it's essential that we follow them guidelines when fitting.
Yes. You know, if you're going to run it 3 or 4 millimeters out, 5 millimeters out, you know, you're not going to have a problem. And when you come to a warranty, let's say it's leaking and you're 5 millimeters out, it's not something that we're going to worry about. And still, as a manufacturer, if something happens within the manufacturing process, and we think that shouldn't have happened, that's our fault, we're still going to replace it. But if something's happened due to it being outside of the height range.
And one of the other things that affects the warranty, and I have seen this on many occasions over the years, is people gripping the piston rod with some pliers or tightening up, obviously, on the...
Yes.
That will,
so,
that will do damage.
Absolutely. There's a couple of things there, Mark, that you have to pay attention to. So, yes, you're right. We have seen people damage the piston rod.
Because once if you grip that will obviously cut the seal up.
Absolutely.
And that's when it'll leak oil and then be a problem.
So basically, the damper's going to go inside and it's going to rip the main shaft seal and leak. That's what's going to happen when you grip the piston rod, because you leave a sharp edge on there. So, install it properly. Using an air gun on such a technical product with so many moving parts inside, this one's our electronic damper, so you've got a valve system in here. On a variant 3, you've got a bump valve at the bottom. As soon as you start spinning this piston rod at the rate of the rotation of an air gun, everything's going to start moving in here and probably end up, spinning itself off.
Yes.
So, and we have seen that where people who's been on there with an air gun for 5 minutes trying to tighten it, because most of them come with the nylock. So the correct way to do this is hold the piston rod. And as you've been trained at the factory here, all the technicians are awesome, are factory trained. They also have the special toolkit, and they're able to hold the piston rod while the nut's going down, which is the correct installation. It's not a cheap kit. You don't want to be wrecking it and not fitting it correctly.
And of course, because you'll know exactly what's going on if that comes back.
We've seen everything. We've been in business a long time, and I've been with the company 22 years. I've seen most things, and there's some pretty sites and not so great sites. Everything is repairable, but it's at a cost. If you damage something, it's either a new damper or we can repair it. Things do go wrong, on both sides, but we're there to basically give the customer the best experience in the end. So, this kit is, it is a very technically focused kit. It is designed to work with the electronics on the car, and I'm sure you'll find it, very comfortable and a pleasure to drive, Mark.
Great. Well, let's get back with Tabby. Let's get this kit installed, and let's get some driving done later.
Yes. Let's see what Tabby makes of it.
So the suspension is done, the geometry is done. One thing's left. Let's get out in the car with Richard and let's see how it drives.
You're finding it quite comfortable, quite compliant.
Yeah, absolutely. I've driven on 2 suspensions. One suspension that we first fitted was very bangy and not very good. The second suspension was good suspension, but I can already feel, okay, that was a lot more harsher than this. Okay. This is a lot more comfortable. What do you think?
I think it's comfortable.
It is comfortable. It's very comfortable, isn't it?
Even in the dynamic mode.
And I think, generally that's what the customer, the big question that everybody asks when they're changing suspension. And normally we say, you changing the suspension will compromise on the ride. This is not compromising the ride.
No.
It's very, very comfortable, and we're in dynamic now. So just explain that on how this is changing now from the dynamic. So on the system here, we can go from comfort.
Yeah, dynamic. so you can go from comfort, dynamic, and there's sport mode on this one. I think you've got efficiency. I don't know how the dampers change in the sport mode, but yeah, well, I think that's the dynamic mode on this, which is the sport mode. So yeah, you in the comfort mode, but you're basically opening and closing the valve, which is influencing the oil flow.
Yeah.
And that's what's giving it the ride quality from those dynamic modes that you see in front of you. So it does give you the best of everything, really.
But even when it's going into dynamic, it's still very comfortable to drive.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It's still reasonable. You need to enjoy your car. You know, that's always been our focus, is that you enjoy the car and the compromise is as minimal as possible when you're lowering it.
Yeah. And that's just sticking to the roundabout.
Yeah, absolutely.
Feels good.
Feels good.
Really good. Yeah,
really nice.
You know, and KW isn't the cheapest of suspensions out there, but it's always been renowned for being quality and all about the ride quality and the performance.
Absolutely, yeah. The last thing we want you to do is not enjoy your car and the compromise be too big. And that's what's very important for us. So, you know, that's why everything is done correctly. You know, the R&D is the most important part to get everything right. You know, and you're trying to please a wide audience. You know,
yeah.
What's too stiff for you or too soft for you, so it can be different to someone else. You know, on this you have the advantage, you can change it on the dash, on the button, and that's, you know, makes things a little bit different for the customer being able to change that.
It's very strange because actually, in fact, you know, just going over these bumps now, and obviously this road surface here is quite bad.
Yes.
And
we're we're in the dynamic mode.
Yeah, but you know, it feels sporty. But
yes.
Again, like, it's really bizarre because it does.
It's not harsh.
No,
it's not harsh at all. You know, you'd be happy probably driving this, commuting, you know, from home to work every day.
So when obviously in Germany, what's the testing procedure? You know, how do you get that right for the customer? Where do you go testing? What test does that go through?
It goes through lots of testing. You know, from a comfort and dynamic side of things. You know, we've got some beautiful roads out where the factory is up in the mountains.
I think I've been there once.
I think you've been there once or twice.
Yeah. I had a bit of a hairy moment, actually.
I think you did, yes. So, you know, it's, of course, you know, our 7-post rig can tell you all the figures you need in the world. But in the end, how does it drive?
Yeah.
You know, so we do real life testing on real roads.
Yeah.
In different conditions. Sometimes
because you can't use that 7-post rig on.
It doesn't. You know, it
on
was
every vehicle.
No. I mean, everything in our performance range goes on the rig. You know, we get our basic setups, but the final adjustment is always done after a road test.
Yeah.
So you know, that's where our head of R&D signs everything off. You know, it's still done by a human, not computer generated, and you know, we're all enthusiasts, petrol heads, and we know what, you know, we think after 25 years. I think we're 30 years in business coming up this year. That, you know, what people are after, and that's, you know, goes through that. It goes through obviously all the testing with, you know, endurance testing, TUV testing, and everything else. So.
Yeah.
But again, all of that's great, but what does it drive like?
Yes.
You know, so that's what's important, you know, for getting the products on your own cars, so you have the experience to explain to the customers.
And we've got some speed bumps coming up here,
Yeah.
and that's also going to be a test, but this is not crashing. And I have driven some cars that they're very crashy.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. And I you know, for me, I think even in the sport mode is, along these roads, is quite sporty.
So dynamic now, over the speed bumps. Yeah.
Lovely.
I'll just stick
So
that
back
in
into
comfort as we
comfort.
come down.
So you can see it's quite a big speed bump. We're coming down in comfort.
Oh.
The difference.
Oh yeah.
The difference is amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And again,
So like you
going up.
said, you know, if you're going out shopping and you've got all of your baggage, you know, and you've got the kids in the car,
It's going to be nice.
yeah, it's going to be.
Yeah. And I can see your. I think you prefer it in the dynamic mode, do you?
I am, yeah.
And that's the beauty of the kit. You know, what suits you. You know, someone else can say, well, I like it in the comfort mode all the time. You know, so you've got some flexibility. You know, the system is designed to work with all the Audi electronics and sync with it. So it's just a perfect kit to go with if you have the electronic dampers. And you know, in my experience, most people don't tend to want to lose them if they have them. So this is where that kit does really work.
This bump. You would normally hear that bottoming out there, you know. I always tend to, in most cars, I back off there because
you know what it's going to do.
It does bottom, so it didn't bottom there. But maybe there was a slight catch earlier on. But
on the back,
again, we can do that testing
now,
I mean, because we've got that option to go up with that spring.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, brilliant. We are now back at Awesome. Thanks for coming up.
Thanks, Mark. It's always a pleasure to work with you. Brilliant. Thank you.